Tashi and I, Aubrey and I are ready to read more Tashi.
Tashi and I.
Tashi and I are ready to read more Aubrey. All right, we're on the third chapter now called Tashi and the Giants. Aubrey has a lot of energy. Jack ran all the way to school on Tuesday morning. He was so early the streets were empty. Good. That meant he would have plenty of time to hear Tashi's new story. Tashi was Jack's new friend. He'd come from a land far away where he'd met a fire-breathing dragon and fearsome warlords. Today, Tashi had promised the story of Chintu the giant. Tashi was waiting for Jack on a seat by the cricket pitch. So, said Jack, when he'd stopped puffing and they were sitting comfortably, "Did you really meet a giant, Tashi?" "Yes," said Tashi. "It was like this. Do you remember how I tricked the dragon and put out his fire? Well, the dragon was furious, and he flew to the castle where his friend Chintu the giant lived. The dragon told him what I had done, and Chintu boomed, 'Fee, fi, fo, fum, I'll catch that boy for you, by gum!' Chintu took one of his giant steps over to our village and hurled down great boulders just as if they were bowling balls. Third uncle's house was squashed flat as a fritter. Do you know what a fritter is, Aubrey? A fritter is kind of like a pancake, but usually made out of like eggs or vegetables. Flat. Then the giant roared, 'Bring Tashi out to me!' The giant looked terrible standing there. So tall, he cast a shadow over the whole village. He was as big as a mountain. Imagine, a mountain that moved! And tufts of hair stood up on his head like spiky trees. Yeah, Aubrey's showing me those. "So what did you do?" Jack shuddered. "Well, it was like this. My father, who was a very brave man, ran out into the street and cried, 'Be gone, Chintu, we will never give Tashi up to you.' The giant was quiet for a moment. Then he answered, 'If you don't bring Tashi to me, I will come back in the morning and crush every house in the village.'"
And also, he has a beard growing.
He has a beard growing, yeah. Hasn't shaved in a while.
Yeah, like my dad.
The people all gathered in the square to discuss what to do. Some wanted to take me to the giant's house that night. Others were braver and said I should run away. While they were still arguing, I took the lantern and set out for Chintu's castle. I walked and walked until finally, there before me was the giant's castle, towering up to the sky. One path led up to a great door and windows filled with light, but another led down some winding stone steps. I took the lower path, but the steps were so high, I had to jump from each one as if they were small cliffs. After a while, I spied an arched wooden door. It wasn't locked, and I pushed it open. It gave a groaning creak, and a voice called out, "Who's there? Is that you, Chintu, you fly-bitten lump of cowardly husband?" Now I saw a big stone-floored room, and right in the middle was an enormous cage. Inside the cage was another giant. "Ooh," said Jack, "2 giants? Didn't you want to run?" "No," said Tashi, "not me. See, it was like this. The giant in the cage was sitting at a table eating some noodles. She was terrible to look at. She had only 4 teeth, yellow as sandstone, and the gaps in between were as big as caves. Well, while I was staring at her, she said in a huge voice, 'Who are you?' So I told her that I was Tashi, and what had happened, and that I had come to persuade Chintu not to kill me. She gave a laugh like thunder and said, 'You won't change his mind easily. It sets like concrete. I should know. He is my husband. He tricked me into this cage and locked me up, all because we had an argument about the best way to make dumplings. He likes to grind bones for them, but I say flour is much better. Now, Tashi, you need to help me.' And she needed you to help her. Or no, it says, 'Now, Tashi, you need me to help you.' And she needed you to help her," Jack said excitedly. "Right," said Tashi. So when she pointed to the keys over on a stool, I reached up and dragged them over to her. Mrs. Chintu snatched them up and turned one in the lock. Now I'll show that lumbering worms for brains Chintu who is the cleverer of us two. As she walked past, I scrambled up her skirts and hung onto her belt. Do you see Tashi on there, Obs? Where's Tashi? Right there.
Kind of hidden.
Kind of hidden?
But that's his boots.
Yeah.
Those two things. His hair.
She picked up a mighty club that was standing by the door, and then she tiptoed to some stairs that led up and up through the middle of the castle. We came to a vast hall, and there he was, sitting on a bench like a mountain bent in the middle. He was staring into the fire, bellowing a horrible song. Fee, fi, fo, foy, tomorrow I'll go and get that boy. No matter if he's dead or jumping, I'll grind his bones to make my dumpling. Mrs. Chintu crept up behind him, grabbed his tufty hair in one hand, and held the club with the other. I slid down her back to the floor. Chintu, you pig-headed grump of a husband! I can escape from your cages, and I make the best dumplings. Will you admit now that I am more than a match for you? The giant rolled his great eyes and caught sight of me. Who is that? He roared. That is the boy who chops our wood. And Mrs. Chintu winked at me. Now let the boy decide who makes the best dumplings. She let go of Chintu's hair and gave me a hard look. Very well, said Chintu, and he rubbed his huge hands together. Later, they put some sacks down on the floor for me to sleep on. As he was going to bed, Chintu whispered, it was like a thunderclap in my ear, if you decide that her dumplings are better, your bones will make my next batch. And as his wife went by, she said, if you decide that his dumplings are better, I'll chop you up for my next pot of soup. All night I walked up and down the stone floor, thinking what to do. And then I had one of my cunning ideas. I crept downstairs to the kitchen and had a good look about. What were you looking for, Tashi? Asked Jack. Well, said Tashi, it was like this. The next morning, Mrs. Chintu boiled her dumplings, and then Chintu boiled his. When the dumplings were cooked, they both spooned up one each, as big as footballs. We must put a blindfold on the boy so he doesn't know which dumpling he is eating, said Mrs. Chintu, and her husband tied a handkerchief over my eyes. I took a bite of one dumpling and swallowed it slowly. Then I tried the other. They watched me fiercely. When I had finished, I said, these are the best dumplings I ever tasted, and they are exactly the same. No, they're not, thundered Chintu. Taste them yourself and see, I said. So they did, and they were very surprised. The boy is right. They are the same, said Mrs. Chintu. And they are the best dumplings I ever tasted. So then I told him. That's because I went downstairs to the kitchen last night and I mixed the ground bones and the flour together. That's what makes the best dumplings. Bones and flour. What a clever Tashi, cried Mrs. Chintu. Oh, so that's who you are, bellowed Chintu, and he scooped me up in his great red hands. I promised my friend the dragon that I would serve you up to him in a tasty fritter the next time he came to breakfast. Maybe so, said his wife, but just try another dumpling first. The giant did, and when he had finished, he thought for a minute. It was the longest minute of my life. Then the giant sighed and licked his lips. Dragon can have a plate of these dumplings instead, he said. They are exquisite. Be off with you now, Tashi. And so this time I walked out the great front door as bold as you please. When I returned to the village, they were still arguing about whether to give me up to Chintu or to let me run away. I don't have to do either, I cried, and I told them what had happened. What a clever Tashi! cried Grandmother. So that's the end of the story, said Jack sadly. And everyone was safe and happy again. Yes, said Tashi. That is until the bandits arrived. It's the end of that chapter, Will. See you next time for chapter 4, okay? Bye, buddy.